With a watch like this, and what is now years of scholastic studying around this subject matter, do you still need me to explain to you why the FXD is the best? A new month and a new FXD. I can't recall off the top of my head just how many that they have made at this stage. I think it's 4, maybe 5. This is number 5. Now the diehards out there, those of us who have been in this since the very beginning, could say that there is an argument to be made about how these many releases dilute the potency of the initial release and what made it so effective. But every single iteration of this watch offers something different, and for the first time we are seeing the Pelagos receive a GMT complication. This is big news, and I think it was a very wise decision for them to release it with this piece, considering that the FXD line has never been the most popular piece in their range, which I still do not understand. This is a great and easy way to bring attention to this line. We can debate whether or not a dive watch platform is a good one for the choice of a GMT, but that argument is kind of moot when we look to the Submariner and how the GMT Master evolved. And we can also take some time to see how a watch like this sort of reframes the landscape around the FXD collection. I am very excited by it. Keeping it straight and to the point, I am a huge fan of the FXD. It is my favorite Tudor. I think I've said that in about 40 videos at this point. I've talked about it for years and have said from the very beginning that what makes this range such a good one is that it's always been a test platform for the brand to experiment. And not only is it a well-fitting GMT complication in a case that is about 12-13 millimeters thick, but its design, it is textbook. And that is what I want to dig into later. There are very few pieces that leave me speechless. Leave me looking at it saying there is nothing about it I would want to improve. That is what sold me on the original FXD all those years ago. When I saw it presented and what it offered next to the current range of Pelagoses at the time, I was instantly hooked. And what I do admire about this GMT is it gave me that exact same impression upon first viewing. And this to me, not only when you're looking at the nomenclature and where it's pulling its inspiration from, the collaboration with the Aeronautique Navale, it feels in my mind like a callback, like we're going full circle and we're celebrating the original FXD once again. Now it has been an interesting year for Tudor. We have seen a couple of watches that have just received a few color changes like the chronographs, but to see the GMT movement arrive, I think it's fair to say that it was only a matter of time before we would see a watch like the Pelagos GMT launched. It's quite a surprising move that they launched the Pelagos GMT just a few months after the Black Bay 58 GMT arrived. Will a watch like this steal some of the Black Bay's thunder? I don't know. I don't need to sit here to tell you that it's a great watch. We will explore the design in detail, but there are some elements that I would have liked to have seen changed, which I will add on to at the end of the video. But let's just start with the basics. The general dimensions and specifications are very similar to the standard FXD range. The difference now is that it's Meta certified, which is great. It's now using a GMT complication, and it's a great thickness. Comparing the GMT next to last year's US Navy model, first glance, might not even notice a difference. And I think the choice of giving this watch a beige-looking lume was deliberate. In some ways calling back to the earlier left-hand drive. In other ways to give it its own sense of character. Do I like the fact that they've gone down this road? Not really. I do much prefer the stark contrast and professional look of the FXD instead of being anything that's vintage-inspired. I believe that we can leave that kind of detail to the Black Bay range. But in my later improvement to this watch, the render that I'm going to share with you, we might see it remedied. It's all personal preference at the end of the day. What I've always greatly admired about the FXD range is the detail that it offers. And with this piece, it is no different. The decision to go with orange for the accent color, great choice. The text arrangement on the dial, Pelagos GMT master chronometer with the depth rating. It's not your typical ascending or descending order like you would see with the Pelagos 39. When we look across to the date window, it's color matched to the parchment lume. Not the first time a brand has done this, but how they have intelligently used different colored lume and matched the hands with it. Easy to distinguish between the time telling and the GMT complication. The choice of using a broad arrow hand instead of a snowflake hand was a deliberate one, especially paired next to the bezel insert. It looks kind of 1655 Explorer 2 to me, don't you think? In more ways than one, it's tying in the nuances of the 1970s. The very deliberate, blocky snowflake elements of the Tudor with the Rolex-inspired details of orange accents and that gorgeous bezel insert. As a combination, it does have a very military-oriented UTC look. It does appear regimental in design, and if you squinted at it hard enough, you might mistake it for a Zinn. The only area of this watch that I feel is quite conflicting is the choice of strap used. Why is it that there is no dividing line through the center of the strap that we have seen with the FXD for the Marine Nationale and the US Navy? Quite a nice touch is seeing that elasticated keeper with the Marine Nationale, or should I say Aeronautique Nouvelle logo on it. For someone like me who is a big enthusiast around this range, there is no better compliment to say that for me this is the ideal companion piece next to the original watch. Besides these two watches sharing the same case design, they are polar opposites. But in their own unique way, both of them manage to communicate their function, their purpose extremely well. And I so enjoy the fact that this platform is still being used and experimented with. I've traveled to many places and I've used this watch everywhere. It is my grab and go. The thought of having a GMT complication with it, it is the cherry on top of the cake. And this is what I've been holding off saying throughout this video. This is the one line that I wrote down before starting the recording. If Tudor had given me the brief to come up with a Pelagos GMT, this is exactly how I would have presented it. Maybe the colors would have been slightly different, but the foundation, the choice of bezel insert, the arrow hand, the arrangement of the type, whoever the team was responsible for creating this piece, I think they had a hand at making the very first model because it truly is exemplary. And it tells you that you don't need to reinvent the wheel to create an incredible watch. When the small details are taken care of and everything just meshes in line, well, here in front of you is a good example of that. Now to my improvements with this watch, nothing too major. But I think some of the elements would have made it a bit more congruent. I would have liked to have seen a piece like this with an all-black case, bezel, crown, you name it. Whether that is DLC coated or a carbon composite. I think what it would have done, given it more of a stealth look, of course, but the cream aspects of the watch would have been a little bit less in your face and maybe would have made a bit more sense visually. And the only other detail I would have added is a center line through the strap, which I think would have made that relationship with the other military pieces far closer. But the color of the center line, it doesn't need to be bright orange, it doesn't need to be red, it can be black. I know for a fact that I will always be speaking for the minority when it comes to the FXD, because this range people just don't appreciate. Whether it's down to its size, 42mm is not for everyone. I don't have the biggest wrists in the world, but somehow I pull it off. Believe me, when it's on the wrist, it's a different experience. But I so appreciate this collection. Genuinely one of the top 5 collections that I truly admire. I've said it once and I'll say it again. If I could own 3 of these, I would. If I was to start the watch hobby all over again, just looking at recent releases, the FOIS Speedmaster that's just arrived with that beautiful blue dial, that chronograph, and this GMT Pelagos, what else do you need? All I can say, it's a great time to be a watch enthusiast, and if you're a Pelagos fan, well, you have a plethora to choose from. Has this particular Pelagos flipped the script on the Tudor GMT? And I'll leave you with this controversial question. Is it necessary to chase a Rolex when a Pelagos is able to do something like this? Creating a watch that is wearable, discreet, that's usable in any environment that you don't have to worry about. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.